over me over the past many decades. So for me, it is a particular pleasure to be with all of you. I wish I could have been there physically, but times are getting too normal. And it's really a privilege to be amongst both of you together. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mukesh Bhai, for your most gracious, most kind words. Mukesh Bhai, as you know, we at Pune International Center are holding Asia Economic Dialogue 2022 with the support and blessings of our External Affairs Ministry. Our theme this year, as you know, is resilient growth in the post-pandemic world. And before we begin our discussion on green energy for sustainable future, may I ask you about your thoughts on Asia's future and the place of India in particular?
Well, Dr. Mashilkar, it is becoming more obvious with each passing year that the 21st Asia century, the center of gravity of global economy, has clearly shifted to Asia. From the 1st to the 18th century, Asia was leading the world in global GDP. After suffering a retreat in the last 2 centuries, Asia is now making a strong comeback. In 2020, Asia's GDP, as we all know, overtook the GDP of the rest of the world combined. By 2030, the Asian region is expected to contribute roughly 60% of global growth. We should also remember that Asia accounts for 60% of the world's population. More Asians will join the middle class in the next 2 decades than the combined population of all other countries, which means Asia is leading the march towards a more inclusive global economy. The mismatch between demography and development is closing. All this goes to show that a resurgent Asia will contribute to a more equal world. This is a most welcome trend. The trend is also reinforced by the fact that India is likely to overtake Japan as Asia's second largest economy and the world's third largest economy by 2030. Dr. Mashilkar, I am very confident that the India growth story will be as exciting, if not more, than that of the China in the coming decades to come. It is India's time.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's so inspiring. 21st century as Asia's century. Mukesh Bhai, let me now turn to our theme, which is green energy for our sustainable world. Let me begin by asking you, why green energy? Or in your words, why new energy?
Well, to my mind, the answer is very simple and well known. All of us as humanity have only one planet. There is no planet B. The only planet in the entire universe, which is home to human life and to countless other living species, is planet Earth. And planet Earth is facing an existential crisis because of climate change. The climate crisis is essentially an energy crisis. The excessive use of fossil fuels in the past 200 years has gravely endangered the fragile ecology of the planet. Of course, it has brought prosperity to a large part of the global community. But this prosperity has been at the cost of the planet's environment and ecosystem, and therefore unsustainable. Climate change is the biggest threat today to mankind's future well-being. It is an even graver threat to plant and animal species, which are indeed our planetary relatives. After all, humans, animals, and trees are not adversaries competing for space on this planet. They are linked by countless forms of cooperation and symbiosis. As a lover of wildlife and nature myself, and as someone who likes to spend time in nature parks, wildlife sanctuaries, I can tell you that we have a responsibility to conserve all these precious gifts of Mother Nature and pass them on to our future generations. Therefore, the transition from old energy to new, green, and clean energy is not an option. It is an urgent imperative. Our very survival depends on how quickly we embrace planet-friendly renewables like solar, wind, and hydrogen. And one more thing, energy transition will also determine the geopolitical transition in the 21st century. As you know, Dr. Mashelkar, when wood was replaced with coal, Europe overtook India and China to emerge the world leader. Similarly, with the emergence of oil, the US and West Asia outgrew others. When India becomes not only self-sufficient in green and clean energy, but also a large exporter, it will help India emerge as a global power. India will demonstrate that prosperity for all people and prosperity for our planet are not mutually contradictory goals. This transition will have other benefits as well, such as a huge number of green jobs. It will also mean massive foreign exchange savings, since energy and electronics are today India's biggest import goods. Finally, green and clean energy ensures better health and better quality of life for everyone on the planet. Therefore, I believe that the transition to new energy will indeed lead to a new earth-friendly industrial revolution.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Earth-friendly industrial revolution. Mukesh bhai, I heard about industrial revolutions that moved from industry 1.0 to 2.0 to 3.0 to industry 4.0, but not earth-friendly industrial revolution. Sounds very, very interesting. Can you please explain this grand vision of yours to our audience of Asia Economic Dialogue 2022?
So, Dr. Mashelkar, if we see the trajectory of the first three industrial revolutions, we find that they basically disrupted the harmony between human beings and nature. The economic growth in the past few centuries was premised on the principle of control and exploitation of nature and natural resources, or Earth's resources. In contrast, the transition to green and clean energy represents a disruption of a reverse kind. I think we are now beginning to learn from Mother Nature. Our new energy technologies are mimicking Mother Nature insofar as they convert sunshine and hydrogen in water into electricity. Mother Nature has also created a virtuous carbon cycle in which carbon is not a liability but an asset. In course of time, carbon capture, utilization, and storage technologies will attain scale and help reduce the carbon load in the atmosphere. There is another way in which new energy represents an earth-friendly industrial revolution. In the era of fossil fuels, industrial activities are highly centralized. This is because coal and oil are centralized in their origin and have to be transported large distances. In contrast, in the coming era of abundant and affordable clean and green energy with utility scale battery storage, it is possible to envision that every house, every farm, factory, and habitat could in principle free itself from the grid by generating its own power. The world is also developing technologies that use less land to produce all the more we need. You always say that more from less, and that is what is happening at a world scale all around us, which means we can earmark more land for forests, which also acts as a natural carbon sequester. This is what I mean by the need to transition from industrial revolution to ecological revolution or the earth-friendly industrial revolution. The vision of an earth-friendly industrial revolution has prompted Reliance to adopt care for the planet along with care for the people as the guiding principle of everything we do in all our businesses and philanthropic activities.
Oh, that is fantastic. And Mukesh bhai, you have often talked about 3Ds, I remember, namely digitalization, decentralization, and decarbonization. And Reliance has been, of course, deeply involved in all 3Ds. But you also always talked about your dream of India that is not a follower, but a leader. India as a leader. Can India emerge as a global new energy leader?
I have absolutely no doubt that India can and India will emerge as a global new energy leader. Just see, right, we were among the first in the world where our renewable energy minister announced a hydrogen policy. When the world is still grappling with this, we have put our vision of exporting green energy out of India on the table. So we are early. I believe our Prime Minister believes in ensuring that this next generation of Indians will not only be self-sufficient and Atmanirbhar in their energy, but India can export green energy. And my optimism and confidence really stems from three further reasons. First, India is a country full of entrepreneurial spirit, innovation, and youth. Second, we now have proactive and forward-looking policy support and action from our government, both at the central and the state level. And third, now have assured financing options. Let me elaborate, Dr. Mashal. I have immense faith in the ability of our young entrepreneurs. They are highly ambitious and highly talented, and I'm fortunate to see a lot of them in action all around. I foresee that at least 20 to 30 new Indian companies in the energy and tech space will grow as big as Reliance, if not bigger, in the next 10 or 20 years. Let me put this in perspective for our audience. It took Reliance about 15 years to become a $1 billion company, 30 years to become a $10 billion company, 35 years to become a $100 billion company, and 38 years to touch 200 billion. I have no doubt that the next generation of Indian entrepreneurs will achieve this in half the time. What this also means is that India's community of entrepreneurs will become broader and wealth creation will also become more inclusive. This makes India a more equal nation. Let me make another prediction. India's technology and digital exports have risen to 150 billion from less than 10 billion 20 years ago. By 2030, I believe they will exceed $500 billion. Similarly, India's clean and green energy exports in the next 20 years, at the end of 20 years, also have the potential to have $500 billion of export. In the last 20 years, we were known for India's emergence as an IT superpower. Next 20 years, I believe, will be, along with technology, our emergence as a superpower in energy and life sciences. What is commendable is that the new energy business in India are standing on their own 2 feet with their own entrepreneurship and very little support or basis of any great government subsidies. Technological progress will make energy affordable on the basis of commercial viability, and it will be technology and the entrepreneurial spirit and the new business model that gives values to customers that will drive the business and not government subsidies. And that's encouraging about the new energy opportunities that I see.
Oh, that's my heart was pumping when talking about this. It is so inspiring, such an awesome vision, Mukesh bhai. But as we know, our feet are on ground, and there is always a concern that technology must be backed up by policy investments. Do you foresee any hurdles there? Of course, you are referred to the progressive policy, but want to just revisit this particular part so that we know how we are going and your views in terms of the future.
Well, let me share with you my perspective. India is today one of the most attractive opportunities for renewable energy investment anywhere in the world. As far as policy is concerned, at least I believe that the government of India is extremely committed to promoting new energy, and among all countries in the world, we have been proactive, unlike the past, and I believe that we are at the leading edge of policy development, and all of these policies are transparent and pro-consumer. And the commitment begins at the highest level from our Honorable Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi himself, right from the days of Gujarat. As you know, he is a big proponent of renewable and clean energy. The government is proactive in meeting the financing needs of the new energy sector. The recent announcement in the union budget about the launch of sovereign green bonds is a step in that direction. India achieved its target of 40% power generation of renewables, right, of the target that it had set for 2030 in 2021 itself. And I believe that we will be ahead of this target. India aims to achieve 500 gigawatt of renewable power capacity, which I'm sure we will meet. So right now, on the basis of what I see, I am very optimistic.
Wonderful. This is very, very reassuring. Mukesh bhai, you always tell us about speed, scale, and sustainability, in which again, Reliance is a leader. So coming to India, what are the other factors that will favor India's transition to new energy with speed and scale? Because time is that of the essence, and impacting the largest number of population is the big challenge. So what are those factors for fast transition?
So Dr. Mashelkar, as you and I both believe that India's progress is unstoppable. We will become a $5 trillion economy. We will become a $10 trillion economy. We can only argue about whether it will happen in 25 or 27 and whether 10 will happen in 2030 or 32. So when that happens, right, the quality of life of every Indian has to improve. Today, our per capita energy consumption is 1/3 of the world. I think that for quality of life of all Indians, right, we will have India's own domestic demand for energy will be enormous. Indians are already known for having one of the most eco-friendly and sustainable lifestyle. An average Indian's annual carbon emission is about 1/5 of the average Chinese or 1/8 of the average American. So even if it increases, we will be able to meet it. In fact, an average Indian's carbon emission are less than half of the world average. Indians won't have to make too many lifestyle changes to become carbon neutral. India's per capita income, while today is about $2,000 compared to Europe's $38,000, I believe that progressively we will reach $10,000 per capita in the next 15 to 20 years. And this will increase our energy demand. And at the same time, we will be able to meet our incremental energy at affordable rates because of the progress that we are making in technology and because of the abundance of renewable resources that nature has blessed our country with. So I believe that India will be among the fastest growing large economy, and our energy needs are going to double in the next couple of decades. India will overtake the European Union as the world's third largest economy, in my view, by sometime around 2030, 2032. So India has to address its triple challenges. One, India must increase energy output to drive double-digit GDP growth. And we have to do it at an affordable basis on the use of technology. Second, India must increase the share of green and clean energy in this enhanced output. And third, India must achieve the goal of self-reliance or Atmanirbhar Bharat in pursuing the above two challenges. This, of course, cannot happen overnight. For the next 2 or 3 decades, India's dependence on coal and imported oil will continue. But we must have a plan to eliminate that in the next 2 or 3 decades. Hence, in the near and medium term, we will have to follow low carbon and no carbon strategies of development. Affordable and abundant supply of clean energy will enable every Indian an improved standard of living without disturbing the ecological balance. And this generation has the responsibility to put its successive generations on a path whereby we remain perpetually clean. We have the responsibility of being the transition generation.
I think this very, very exciting. As a scientist, as a technologist, I look at these grand challenges and find them extremely interesting. The issue is the following. I mean, there are all these new energy technologies, some of which we are creating, some of which we are adopting. But again, the essence is doing it swiftly. So do you think India can embrace these new energy technologies swiftly?
Well, I think that from my experience and my perspective, right, this is modular and decentralized. When we build the centralized plants, or when you even build, say, nuclear plants for energy, right, they take a lot of upfront design, they take a lot of infrastructure, and they take between 4 and 6 years. What happens in the decentralized energy world is, yes, you take some time to innovate, get the product right, but then there is modular execution. So this is the same as exponential change, right? So we all know that exponential, if you walk 20 linear steps, you'll walk 20 meters, right? If you walk 20 exponential steps, you'll go 20 times around the earth. And clearly, I think all of us will be surprised by the rate at which this technology catches up, because it is decentralized and modular. Right? Once you have the right efficiencies, then you don't need to really, it is, and I say it very simply to all our people, that this is about everybody can run on their own speed at their own things. You're not holding hands and running so that everybody doesn't fall down at the same time. And that is why it's a completely different execution style. And I'm a believer in decentralized execution.
Yeah, Mukesh bhai, right from Papa's time, phone call at the cost of a postcard, to your days when you said voice is free, you always set audacious targets. And I understand you have recently announced such an audacious target for, I mean, maybe sort of we can talk about it, this 111 target that has excited the whole world.
We really believe that in the next 1 decade, right, we have to shoot to make sure that we bring about all these technologies that I mentioned to produce hydrogen at $1 a kilo and make sure that we transport and convert it also at less than $1 a kilo. And so that's really like, and from my point of view, I am your chela, so I am Professor M.M. Sharma's chela, so I like first principles. And fundamentally, this is as near to stoichiometry as we can get. So we have left not much space. So if we can do this, we cannot do any better. And I have always believed that aiming high and failing is allowed, but aiming low is not allowed. So that was the reason behind this impossible goal. Whereas, as we work on it, it doesn't look that impossible. I think that we will be able to do plus minus 20% of that, but aiming high is always good. Thank you, Dr. Mashelkar. As usual, like it was always an engaging and engrossive conversations. And I just wanted to summarize my 5 key messages for your audience.
Mm-hmm.
First is that the climate crisis is an existential crisis for the planet Earth, and the entire world must overcome this crisis with the highest level of cooperation and partnership. The second is that we as humanity and the world must make a rapid transition from old energy to new energy, which is necessary for mankind's larger transition from an industrial revolution to an ecological or an earth-friendly revolution that we must all embrace. The third is that India will lead this transition from fossil fuels to green and clean energy and will become a leader of solar and hydrogen energy in the coming decades. It's an opportunity worth seizing for India as we march from our 75th anniversary of India's independence this year to our centenary in 2047. Fourth is our young and super talented entrepreneurs will make India a green energy superpower in the next 20 years in the same way that India became an IT superpower in the last 20 years. And finally, the fifth is that we at Reliance are deeply committed to playing a leading role in creating India's green economy with large-scale generation of green employment